Welcome back, I'm Tedward. Welcome to a pretty optimistic day here in February in New England because it's 40-something degrees, so the fools think it's spring, the natives know this is not spring. This is just one of those days that fools you into thinking everything's going to be okay. But today we have the 2025 GMC Sierra EV. This is the Denali Max, and it's big and it's fast. It can go very far. This has a range of 460 miles, but that's not magic. Unfortunately, that 460 miles doesn't come from some outrageously efficient system. It comes because it has a 205 kilowatt hour battery pack. That is heavy. So this thing tips the scales at close to 9,000 pounds, but it has a lot of tricks up its sleeves because it is pretty darn capable. It can tow 10,500 pounds. It has about 760 horsepower, or just shy of that, 785 pound-feet of torque. It's got four-wheel steering. The GMC version of this truck, unlike the Silverado, can crab walk like the Hummer, so that's kind of cool that they put that up its sleeve. And I think the GMC version just looks a heck of a lot better than the Silverado. Personal preference, you can believe what you'd want. Inside, it's vast, it's comfortable. The rear, let's get inside here. I love that you can open and unlock these doors on the thumb there. Look at the leg room back here. There's so much room. Now, these aren't like any fancy chairs or anything, but they do fold down and allow for this glass and this rear section to come completely out. So that means you can use this entire truck bed and also collapse all of this and bring your cargo and payload into the cabin if you had those long planks of wood or whatever the heck you're traveling with. So it does make it pretty darn convenient. But one of the nice things about these trucks being, a two-motor electric vehicle is there's no drive shaft or powertrain going down the middle of the vehicle. So there's no hump in here. This is all just flat. So it's very usable space. In the back, you get 3 stages of heated seats, which is lovely. And the doors are the size of like long wheelbase S-classes. I mean, this is big, but the doors are heavy. And I can already hear you going, oh, you're just a wimp, man. You can't lift a heavy door. No, like the doors are actually kind of heavy. So I do find myself sometimes when I'm casually just like, oh, especially if I've like just gone to the gym, I'm like, oof, you do have to give it a little bit of oomph. And, if that's like your big truck thing and you want to be like, oh, let me get that door for you to your date because you think you're big and strong, like, great, that'll make you look really cool. But to me, sometimes I'm like, it'd be a little nicer if it was lighter. These seats, they've got the Denali up here. Of course, the Denali trim, always the cool luxury versions of these trucks. And you've got a lot of nice different materials, heated and ventilated seats, and really nice side bolsters, which we'll talk about when we're driving. Outside, though, check this out. 24-inch wheels. Oh my goodness. If you had 24-inch wheels when I was in high school, it meant that you were on some Chevy Impala doing like hydraulic bounces in a parking lot with a huge sound system. And this is like crazy. This is donk level, but it looks normal because the truck is enormous. 275 section tires all around. I do not know what they cost, but it is kind of funny when you see these little baby brakes in there. But the good news is, because it's an EV, you have regenerative braking, so it's not like these are underpowered. This thing stops just fine. Around back, we've got our charge port. This is nice because you can fast charge 350 kilowatts at a DC fast charger. And honestly, it's very expensive to do that. It's very expensive to go to a DC fast charger, but chances are you won't need to do that very often because of the size of this battery pack. You've got 460 miles of range, which means you're going to be able to do the heavy lifting overnight at home and just charge at the house in your garage or outside. And I think, oddly enough, in the long run, that may actually save you money because on those longer trips that you do once in a while, sure, you're going to have to stop off and, you won't have to top off this battery very likely. But if you do, yeah, it's going to cost you a bunch of money. But most of the time, you're probably just getting cheap energy. This one has the optional tonneau cover, adding a little bit of money to the MSRP, which is about $100,000. So man, this thing does not come cheap, but it is capable and it's nice to drive as a daily driver. And there's additional storage up front, which I actually forgot about, and I feel kind of dumb because I was out in the city the other day, and I didn't want to put my backpack and stuff in the back of the truck, and then it felt a little exposed inside, so I covered it with some jackets, completely forgetting that I actually have a secure frunk space up here that I could have just put everything in and it would have been good, which I love. I do like that because that means that you actually have a locked box that's non-visible to anybody, and that's great. It's not enormous, but it's something, and you know, it's something that even just have open at the work site, or if you're tailgating, you know, it's just extra space and it's pretty darn nice. It's also cool that it is power. Let's see, we'll close that up. Look at that. Oh, maybe it's not happy. How do we do this? Do I have to hold it? Maybe I hit it twice and hold it. Nope. Yeah, there we go. All right, so I have found with some GM products, there are like really nice features, but sometimes those features are like mildly cumbersome, or I just need to adapt to them. It's probably my fault, but I'm just saying, sometimes these things that should just be very intuitive and easy, I have to hunt for them. One of the best things about any GM vehicle lately is the cameras. You've got cameras all around. This has one of the best camera systems I've ever seen. The top-down view is incredible, and it makes it so easy to park and place and put it wherever you want. And today's been uncharacteristically warm, which means I haven't really needed to start it. But one of the best features about these EVs is that unlike my GX460 with its 4.6-liter V8, when I start that in the morning on like a 20-degree day, also, my goodness, it's so funny to stand next to these dinky little wheels when I've just been next to that. But on a really cold day, I will start that, let it sit for maybe 5 or 10 minutes, then I come out to the vehicle, I get in, it's still not warmed up. Whereas with this thing, man, I don't have any guilt because I'm not really wasting that much energy. I'm not burning all that fuel to get it warmed up. And the heat pumps are running, it's smart, so it knows to turn on my heated seat, it knows to turn on my heated steering wheel. And by the time I get in here, the cabin is like legitimately warm, and I haven't been like a loud polluting neighbor the whole time it's doing it. Anyway, inside, it's easy to get in. You've got the big side step. You do not have an A-pillar handle. I do love an A-pillar handle. I've got one in my Lexus. Very few vehicles have that, but more should. Okay, we'll close this up. And then inside, it has no start-stop button. You don't do any of that stuff. But let's say you got in the car, you realize, you know what, I'm not going anywhere, and then you get out. It's still on, and what if you wanted to turn it off? Well, there is a way to do that. There's a little button down here. It says off, vehicle off, and that can be very convenient. Anyway, put your foot back on the brake and she starts right back up, and we have all of our normal things. Now, this interior is bonkers. We've got lots of nice materials. There's great wood and deviated stitching, and over there above the Denali, you'll see the latitude and longitude for Denali, the highest peak in North America. And it has Super Cruise, so this will drive itself hands-free on certain roads, not all roads, but that is a nice thing to do. Unlike the Silverado, this has the tall tablet-style screen, which I think I actually prefer. I like this a lot. It's a little lower in the cabin. It doesn't reach around the whole thing. I think this is a cleaner setup to me. I know that's personal preference, but I do wish the UI was a little more interesting, because this is all just completely black and white, and when I'm driving, that is difficult to see what I'm looking at. I'm like, oh shoot, I need to go to my drive modes or whatever. And I know where it is now, but you know, if we're looking at the cameras, great. If they had colors to them, I think it would just be a little easier to deal with. Down here, we still have some physical buttons, these piano keys, which I love. And then the only complaints I have about this are just that when I want to turn my heated seat on or off, it's a little touch button instead of like a nice physical button, because I have my nice physical button right here for my heated steering wheel. And those are things that like I just don't want to have to look at while I'm driving. Nitpicky, I know, but I'm gonna say it. This is 16.8 inches diagonal. This is monstrous, and maybe a little too big. Maybe they've gone a little overkill, but honestly, it's pretty darn nice. I will show you the maps on this once we're not in my driveway. On the steering wheel, sorry, I'm getting into some nitty-gritty stuff. More expensive GM vehicles have a variable regen paddle on the steering wheel. This is usually just a binary click, click, click kind of thing, on or off, on cheaper vehicles like the Equinox or the older Bolt. That would just click on and off. With this, you can actually pull it to your heart's content, and you know, that'll slow the vehicle down without hitting the brake. So anyway, let's get it in reverse. Look at these gorgeous cameras. We love that. and silently make our way out. Oh, look at that! Jetta front end. The toys are coming out to play for the spring. The turning radius is fantastic because I believe it's 8 degrees of rear steer, whereas on the Hummer EV, you get 10 degrees of rear steer. 8 is plenty. This thing is absolutely fantastic. And actually, we'll pull into that neighborhood up there and I'll show you the crab walk mode real quick. But an astute ear, we do have some rattles. They're not horrible. But this only has 2,400 miles on it, so it is a little bit annoying to hear that. So let's pull in over here. I just want to show you the crab walk mode because it's a fun party trick. And essentially what it does is it'll turn the rear wheels with the front wheels so you can move side to side as you drive. So in order to do that, we go to Controls, Crab Walk. You get killer graphics to show off to all your friends. And then look at this. We're just gliding. And if you listen closely, you can hear the rear electric steering. And the truck is just doing this crazy thing. So then when we go back to controls, we can set our rear steering back to auto. And now it's just going to do its normal thing where it's turning in phase and doing all that stuff. So that's great, neat. Let's talk driving dynamics. It's fast. You can pull out into traffic and you're up to speed immediately. You're not going to sit there and wait for this thing to spin an inside rear wheel like you would in some other pickup trucks when you're too high. No, you've got all-wheel drive. This thing is going to rocket off the line and it's probably going to shock some people. There's the ZDX. Aha, it's a big EV day. Okay. And it is genuinely impressive how quick this is. There is a power mode. If we go, let's see, this is where this gets a little tricky, okay, because I don't like fiddling with things. I was almost in a car accident as a passenger on a car launch. Wow, that was wild. Okay, I was not expecting the splash we just got. That was fun. But I was on a car launch and I was in the passenger seat and my drive partner was driving the vehicle and they were fiddling with things and they went into oncoming traffic. It was terrifying and I really don't love being a passenger anymore because of that. It was just terrifying. But what we'll do is we pull out of this stop, we'll put it in the max power mode with the Thor's hammer there. Look at all these big pickup trucks, man. And then look, we'll hit it. And it does a pretty good job of laying it down. I mean, I do think that this gets a little squirrely when you push it. But, what do you expect? The thing's like nearly 9,000 pounds. And you're talking about nearly 800 horsepower. Like, of course it's gonna wander a little bit. So I do kind of give it the benefit of the doubt on that. And also, I'm gonna tell you, I've had this for 155 miles. I've been driving it for a few days. That was the first time I've gone wide open throttle in it. It doesn't need it. It doesn't matter. I haven't thought about it. It just is not part of the driving experience unless you're really just specifically doing it to do it. Which brings me to my next point. The problem with these EVs in general is efficiency when it comes to cold weather. Now, it's been cold, and we know that. Like, I'm not trying to say these companies have to defy physics, but what I am saying is this number right here, the range of the battery, should always be reasonably accurate. And the vehicle knows the temperature of the battery, it knows the ambient temperature, it knows the conditions. So what frustrates me is if you put this up to 100% and it's 15 degrees out, why should you tell me that you have 400 plus miles of range when you really have more like half of that? Look at that. I mean, the tiniest amount of wheel spin, it's amazing, But here's the deal. I have been driving this babying it, like legitimately babying it. I've done a lot of mixed driving. You've seen me in the city doing the night drive through Boston, which I really enjoy that video. I hope you watch it. And I've done a bunch of highway driving to get there because I'm about 30 miles out of the city. And on the highway, I was driving no greater than 74, 75 miles per hour. I think I set my cruise control and super cruise to somewhere in the neighborhood of 72 miles per hour. So I'm not driving 80, I'm not driving 90. And after 131 miles, my range had dropped 78 miles below where it had initially predicted. So through that mixed driving of 131 miles, it was off by 78 miles, which is frustrating. Now, if you own the vehicle and you're used to it and you understand what it's going to do, great. But if I got in this as like a rental car or or as a press car, I'm like, oh, I'm going to go A to B and it tells me I have 422 miles left, and I go there and I really only had like 60% of that. Like, that is actually a problem. And I just wish that that number right there was a little more accurate given conditions, which the vehicle is aware of. So I haven't talked to any of my, PR friends at GM about this. Maybe they have more answers to this, but I'm just telling you, like, that is something that I experienced while driving it. And if I've experienced it, then anyone who gets in a vehicle is going to experience that. So I figure it's worth sharing. But as far as just usability, it's so smooth. It has air ride, which is relatively stiff, but I do, if memory serves, feel like this is a lot softer than the Silverado RST that I drove back when that launched. And I remember feeling like, wow, that is stiff. Now, it's a pickup truck. It's a pickup truck on air suspension. And I think the air suspension part sets the expectations like it's gonna be a Bentley. It's not. It's just allowing it to raise and lower and do a couple fiddly tricks, and that's great. However, I do think this still handles like the road nicely. My only complaint, my only gripe about the handling of the vehicle is just the weight of the steering. I feel like it's a little heavy. And again, I know people are like, oh, this guy's weak, he can't steer a car. Ugh. Like, look, I'm talking about everything relative to all of the vehicles that I've driven, which is in the thousands, okay? And I do just feel like sometimes the steering of this is slightly cumbersome, just a little heavier than I anticipate. And it's fine kind of just on center and a few degrees in either direction. But there's times when I'm making other motions and it's a little further that I'm like, that like kind of just took a little more energy than it needed to. And it doesn't need to because it's all very tunable stuff. Okay, in terms of creature comforts, yes, GMC Denalis, they very rarely disappoint. This thing feels fantastic. I've got all of the amenities I need. It has more like Cadillac vibes than Chevy vibes if we think about it that way. And I just think it's a spacious, nice interior. And as much as I love driving a big diesel, it is nice to be able to like regeneratively brake to a stop. And actually, that's the nice thing about this paddle, is it really does let you smoothly come to like a perfect stop. All right, we'll be very gentle here. There's a school bus. And I do think the refinement and usability of these cars is a testament to the care of the engineers at GM, which I know to be true because I've driven so many vehicles and I always think like they kind of get things just dialed in right. My only big GM complaint when it comes to dialing things in is I think the pedal travel on the Corvette is too long. But I suppose you could put a pedal commander or something in there and change that on your own if you need to. So right now we're just driving some back roads out to where I normally go running, and we'll do a little personal update. I haven't been running much lately because I have had this persistent and persnickety knee injury. My right knee, I always get this patellar tendonitis, which flares up. So every time I think I'm okay, I go for a run, it swells up, it gets painful, and then it's just a nightmare for a couple weeks, and I always go back to running a little too early. So this winter, I'm concerted effort not running for like 10 weeks. I have like 3 or 4 more weeks to go, and that's the goal, is to just properly let it heal. In the meantime, I've been just going to the gym and lifting because I want to get some big old strong quads for 2 reasons. 1, it'll help protect that knee. And 2, you guys won't be so mean in the comments in the summertime when I wear shorts. I mean, geez, dude, leave me alone. No, it's okay. I get it. I'm a skinny dude, man. And a lot of you guys just big burly guys who only respect big burly guys. That's your thing. You love a big burly guy. So, all right, well, I'll put on a little muscle mass. So in terms of efficiency, I think we're in a school zone right now. All right, we're good. It's past 3 o'clock. You need to be getting over 2 miles per kilowatt hour in order to achieve the max range projected by this vehicle, right? Because 2 miles per kilowatt hour, if you have 205 kilowatt hours, you need, 2 miles per kilowatt hour means 410 miles, right? So it needs to be greater than that. I have been driving this like pretty gently. And yes, granted it's cold and the cold is going to kill the range. I've only been able to achieve 1.6 miles per kilowatt hour. So that is slightly frustrating just because I'm being nice to it. The only launch I've done so far in the 160 miles I've done was with you a minute ago, and that number didn't change. So it just goes to show you that, like, yeah, I have been being pretty kind to the vehicle and driving it reasonably slow and trying to accommodate it. So I guess there are just some qualms I have with, like, how real is the range and under what conditions can I achieve that range? And I didn't expect to get it in the winter. I'm not crazy. I'm not like, I get the EV thing, but I just thought I could just do a little bit better. If you hear something rattling around in the back, like I'm gonna hit the brakes and you're gonna hear it roll forward. I don't know what that is. I've been hunting for it. I've opened that door. I've looked through all the door cards. I cannot find whatever the heck that is. It just sounds like hard plastic on hard plastic, and I don't. It's driving me bananas. Look at the size of the map. The map is insane, and they integrated the map into the dashboard so I can make that map just look directly in front of me, which is super helpful. I really like this. The Google integration is great. However, I still miss Apple CarPlay. I do. I wish I could just get completely on board with this integration. It's just easier. It's easier. Even when I'm sure there's ways to make this work better, but I just want to plug my phone in and not think. I do. And I have to do too many steps in this to make my phone work the way I want it to. I find myself always listening to commercials on podcasts because I'm just playing it through Bluetooth and I don't have the skip ahead 10 or 15 second button. It's the little things, baby. It is. And when you get used to something like Apple CarPlay, it is really hard to go back. So like maybe in a world where there never was Apple CarPlay and we started with this could be better. But like, I just think this ship sailed. I think we gotta just have Apple CarPlay. It just has to be. But that being said, I'm still very, very impressed with all of the capabilities of these dashboards and their great ways to just change them into different views and modes and like make them kind of into dark modes. Like you want to see a lot of information, you want to see very little information. It's fantastic. Let's jump on the highway real quick. Now I was kind of playing with it a little bit on that on-ramp because I do recall in the Silverado, lateral grip was not a strength. It felt like it was just squealing tires. These sound a lot quieter because I can remember being able to get those tires to squeal at alarmingly low speeds, like 30, 40 miles an hour on an on-ramp. It seemed to hold up okay. So maybe it's different rubber, maybe better rubber. I'm not so sure, but that's all right. Okay, and then of course, we have Super Cruise, which is true hands-free driving, which is always really nice. This takes so much energy out of long drives, and when you've got range like this and you can do long drives in your EV, and you probably will, you hear that in the back. That must be the pressure relief valve back there for the air suspension, because you always hear that. But it just allows you to go out and just kind of chill. Like, this is so nice. I spent some of my fondest memories in the, we'll go off here. Some of my fondest memories in the Suburban Diesel was just super cruising down to New York. I had so much fun doing that. at this, regenning the whole way down the hill. We just pulled over 150 kilowatts on that D-cell. Like, that's faster than some EVs even charge. Navigating narrow places in this is not that difficult. I proved that in Boston through the city drive at night, and the cameras help when you're like not totally sure what's going on. Let's see, you are going to do that, so we are going to be good doobies, and we're not going to cause any trouble for a school bus. Anyway, I do think the cameras just make this so easy to navigate stuff, because you could just see everything, anything you want. So whether you're off-roading or you're just trying to be like, hey, am I on the yellow line? Where am I? What's going on? Like, you just have that ability to make sure that, like, in tight scenarios, you're good. I also like it because this is such a tall nose that if a child that size ran in front of me, I can't see it. I can't see that child. But thankfully, at least if I really wanted to, I could go here and look in front of me. And you know, that's really nice, because I don't want to be in a scenario where I'm like, hey, are we good? Is everything okay? Is there something in front of me that I don't want to run over and pulverize? Because I would really like to not go to jail because I didn't see a child. Oh, some big old potholes. And it takes it pretty well. So despite the 24-inch wheels, there is still a somewhat reasonable amount of sidewall on these things. They're not rubber bands. But, oh my goodness, I almost forgot. These are inflated to over 60 PSI. You don't believe me? Check this out. Rear tire pressure, 68 PSI. Front tire pressure, 62 PSI. Oh my goodness. If you ever hit something hard enough, the explosion that you're gonna hear off of these tires. This is such a weird spot because there's no stop sign, but it seems like there should be. Anyway, we're gonna go past here. There's a house with cool Volvos. I don't know if they're still there. Yep, they've still got Volvos. We love to see it. Isn't it great when you see like a brand loyal house? There's a Volvo V70R, there's a regular cross country, and then like an S80, S90 thing, whatever. Very neat. And a Blazer EV. All right, look at that. So let's call it here on the GMC Sierra EV. Now, this truck, you hear that? It's lowering. You hear that little release of air pressure from the suspension. This vehicle, I feel like, came a little too late. They've been touting the Silverado coming out. It was going to compete with the Lightning, and the Lightning had already gone through its arc of like, oh my goodness, look at all the ADM people are paying over sticker, to you can't even find them, to the used market being super high, to, and they've leveled out. Like, that was like an old school company going public, worth a ton of money, and then kind of dying out and leveling out. Now it's like, sure, you want a brand new Ford Lightning? Go get one at a dealership. The Silverado and Sierra, they just came a little late to the party. The hype for EV pickup trucks, I feel like, had already died down a little bit. And I don't know where that's going. So, $100,000 is a lot of money to spend on these. You can get a cheaper version of it for $70,000 in different trim levels. But no matter what you buy in this, you're going to have plenty of battery. You're going to have plenty of range. Even if it's like under 400 miles, like it's over 350. So that's a lot. But I am very curious to see the longevity of things like this and how they sell and how they do and how they perform. As a daily driver, it's fine. I'm having a good time in it. Like, I have very few complaints about just drivability and usability. I've discussed what I like and don't like. I think really what it comes down to is this going to match the financial situation you'd like to be in, whether it's the buy-in price, the depreciation, and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, if this is up your alley, I say go drive one. Go figure it out. Go see what you like. But I also understand if maybe it doesn't fully meet the needs. Yeah, anyway, thank you so much for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Don't forget to respect the drive, and I'll see you in the next one.